Topological transition from band to topological insulator under pressure in SB2 SE3.
Forward. Okay. Which is the this one. Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, thanks to Arindam and Krishnendu for having me here. And he felt that it is always good to give thermal shocks to people from the cold atoms to the room temperature physics. So my talk will deal with experiments done under pressure at room temperature using Raman scattering as a probe, and what we can see interesting things happening in topological insulators as well as band insulator. So let me first start by thanking the people who have done the work. This is the work of Achintya and my colleague Dr. Muthu. The experiments were done by them, and you will see the understanding of our experiments came out of Umesh and his student Kaushik's work. And the single crystals of this bismuth telluride, bismuth selenide and similar systems, they were grown by Prasenjit Gupta Sarma and his postdoc. So you have already heard quite a bit on topological insulator, I understand, in the last 3 days. Sorry I couldn't be here, but I'll just tell you in 2 slides the main ingredients which you just need to remember, just need to know. And why? And the reason I'm saying is because this will be relevant in understanding our experiment. So we by now all of you would have absorbed the fact that topological insulators are the insulators in the bulk, but they have exotic metallic state present at the surface, and this metallic state occurs due to topological invariants characterizing the topology of bulk electronic wave functions. So and we will see in a minute that this bulk excitation gap is importantly generated by the spin orbit interaction. So here another thing which is which makes this different from the band insulator, that these surface states of a topological insulator are topologically protected, namely they cannot be destroyed by impurities and imperfections, and electron spin is locked to its linear momentum for the surface states. So here what I have drawn is the bulk band gap, a bulk energy diagram, and these are the surface states, and the Fermi level lies somewhere here. So the things which are important for us to understand our experiment is the fact that this non-interacting topological insulators, they are characterized by topological invariants Z2 which are determined from geometric properties of electronic states as a function of block wave vector. So we know that in 2D there is one Z2 invariant, and for 3D, for time reversal invariant band structure, it is characterized by 4 Z2 invariants. And just for the sake of students, it is good to realize that this existence of odd number of massless Dirac cones on the surface is ensured by the Z2 topological invariants of the bulk. So these are the references which will be relevant for discussing our experiments. So how do you identify these Z2 invariants? How do we look for the candidates that these are topological insulator? Important thing is that these invariants, they are determined by the parity of the occupied band eigenstates at the time reversal invariant momenta in the Brillouin zone. For example, for bismuth selenide, you look for the product of parities of the block wave functions of the occupied bands at 4 points, and see the product whether it is odd or even, and then you can infer whether you have a topological insulator or not. So here what happens, as we will see in a minute, that on turning the spin orbit coupling, parity of one of the occupied bands at gamma point is changed, whereas at other points it is not changed. So what really matters is the parity of the eigenstates at the gamma point. So just to remind that the systems we are looking at, bismuth selenide, bismuth telluride, sp2te3, they are three-dimensional 3D strong topological insulators, and in contrast sp2se3 is a band insulator. So we will be looking at phonons as a signature of these materials in this class of system and in a band insulator. So this is the this is the unit cell. Just to remind that it is a rhombohedral unit cell with space group R3 bar M, and there are 5 atoms per unit cell. So 2 bismuth and 3 tellurium, or the similar for other systems. So it is good to see that this structure which I mentioned, it really is a stack of a quintuple layer which has 5 atoms in 5 layers, and these 5 layers are this selenium 2 and selenium 1, the 3 of them. So this selenium and this selenium are equivalent layers, and this antimony and this antimony layer are equivalent. So we have selenium 2 at the inversion center. So here I'll go this band diagram which is discussed, for example, in this 2010 paper and Nature Physics paper, just tell what I mean by spin orbit coupling being important. So you immediately realize that we know bismuth and selenium, this is the atomic configuration, and here the outermost orbits are the p orbitals which are relevant, and you will have in this you have 5 atoms in the quintuple, so you have 3 or px, py, pz, so you have 15 orbitals. So this is what 15 will really characterize these states. So now you can start in a very simple way, start with bismuth and selenium, and now bring the strong hybridization of bismuth and selenium orbitals. So they will be, bismuth will be pulled up, selenium will be pulled down. I'm sorry, this is not very clear. This is SXYZ, S prime XYZ, and this is the minus parity. This is the bismuth levels, and now you bring the formation of bonding and anti-bonding states due to the inversion symmetry. So they get further split, and what is important here is the crystal field splitting, which is what is given here. But in the last column you switch on the spin orbit coupling. So this is the relevant box which you need to focus, that here this is a P2Z, this is the odd parity, and because this, when you invoke spin orbit coupling, this goes up, this goes up, and this comes down. So if you look at the parity of these states, the highest occupied state has an even parity and this has an odd parity, and this is a very much defining way to identify a topological insulator. So in this table, what is plotted, sorry, this should be occupied bands, I'm sorry, this is 14 occupied bands. You look at their parities, and the product of that is given in this case. So this I am showing for some Sb2 Sc3, which is a band insulator, and these are the 3 topological insulators. So I don't know if you can see from the back very clearly the highest occupied band. If you look at this and the lowest unoccupied band, I have just summarized what you need to be focused, that for a topological insulator the valence band has an even parity and conduction band has an odd parity, whereas in band insulator they have a valence band has an odd parity and conduction band has an even parity. So this one, so this is what is the parity at gamma point of those 14 occupied bands. That's what I said, that this Z2 invariant, that is really defined by the product of this eigenstates. So what really matters here as a quick check, that the parity of this valence band and conduction band is different in topological insulator as compared to the band insulator, and this is what will be relevant when we look at what happens to a band insulator under pressure. So this is again has been shown. This is just from theoretical ones, and there are beautiful experiments, and the people are in the hall who have done this beautiful experiment. It is just to show that for this band insulator you don't have this surface Dirac cone, whereas for bismuth selenide, bismuth telluride and Sb2Te3 you have this Dirac cones, and these are the bulk states. So this was just a primer on topological insulator. What is relevant to identify whether what will change when you go from band insulator to a topological insulator. So now what is our motivation in doing these experiments? So we are interested to look for signatures of change in electronic topology in the bulk property. So as you realize that most of the experiments really look for, like ARPES, they look for the surface states, which are, as I said, are like the Dirac cones, odd number of them, and most of the experiments focus on the surface properties. Our idea is to look for some bulk signatures of these band insulator vis-a-vis topological insulator. So in recent 1 or 2 years, there are reports which talk of an electronic topological transition in a TI, namely bismuth telluride and bismuth selenide under pressure. So we were motivated to see what really happens if you start with a band insulator and apply pressure. So idea is that we are looking for a possibility for a transition from a band insulator to a topological insulator under pressure by tuning the crystal field splitting and hybridization between antimony and selenium, and look for the signatures in the bulk properties, not the surface Dirac states. And this we want to do by looking at phonons through electron phonon coupling. So this is the target for these experiments. So just what is known in the literature. So bismuth telluride is a known topological insulator, and it was shown like in 2011 that if you do room temperature experiment, these are room temperature experiments, plot the volume versus pressure, what really happens, you see this pressure induced phase transitions, and this is what also is borne by this DFT type of calculations, which minimize the energy and so on, and these structural transitions are understood. But what is interesting is that if you look at the low pressure between 0 to 4, when you plot this lattice parameter versus pressure, you don't see an anomaly. But now if you plot the same data, I will not go into detail, but essentially you plot the reduced pressure versus a Eulerian strain, which is what I have given here. For A axis and C axis, you see an anomaly happening at this Eulerian strain, which corresponds to about 3 GPa, 3 gigapascal, which is 30 kilobar. So here what you see, this pressure versus Eulerian strain, you see a change in slope. There is no change in crystal structure here. No new lines appear, nothing happens to the structure, but this is reflected in this H versus Eulerian strain. This is seen more clearly in, I'm sorry for this, not very clear. This is, it happens in HA in the A axis, and it does not happen along the C axis. So, so this paper first time indicated, without really being supported by the theory, that this transition might be the electronic topological transition, whereas there is no change in the structure and topology must be changing. The reason was that there was other experiments in last few years where they had looked at bismuth telluride thermoelectric power. Again here at 3 GPa there is an anomaly seen. And another experiment, which is again, which I have written here, 2011, they have seen that the superconducting transition temperature has an anomaly at 3 GPa, and Hall resistance also shows an anomaly or a change in slope versus pressure at this transition. So this data put together is used to make a conjecture or a statement that the electronic topological transition should be happening at about 3 GPa. So what happens in Raman scattering? I'll just tell you that. Again, to remind you that we have Raman active modes. There are 4 Raman active modes with A1G symmetry and E2G symmetry. The eigenvectors are drawn here just enough to show that A1G modes are along the C axis and the eigenvectors of E2G mode are really in the XY plane. And what happens in the experiments when we do, this is room temperature experiment, hydrostatic pressure. You look at this Raman signatures, and when you plot Raman frequency versus pressure, you can identify the structural transitions. But what is interesting is at the same pressure, namely 3 GPa, a new mode appears and which is completely reversible, and again it is not present below 3 GPa. So this is something is a very one change we see, and this is the M1 mode which I am talking about. So this appears only at 3 GPa. So we don't have a full microscopic understanding, but phonon signatures are seen in the at 3 GPa. Now what happens in another system, bismuth selenide, to show you that also pressure versus volume does not show an anomaly at 2 to 3 GPa, but again when you plot H versus Eulerian strain, you do see an anomaly. And in Raman signatures are also very subtle. These are already topological insulators. So here the changes in Raman scattering are again very subtle, and only the omega versus pressure, the slope changes. And many other things are happening which I will not go into. But my focus of the talk really is on this band insulator, SB2, SC3. What really happens in a band insulator when you apply pressure. So there has been a report that if you have a uniaxial strain, then you along the C axis, you can convert, you can have a transition from a band insulator to a topological insulator, which is reflected in the parity of this highest occupied band states at the gamma point. So again, to remind you, we are looking at these phonons in these experiments, and I will not go into detail, but let me just focus on the main result here, which is quite anomalous. So here Raman shift is being plotted versus pressure, and I want you to focus your attention on this M1 mode, which is a E2G mode with a eigenvectors in the XY plane, and this mode is highly anomalous. You can see that this mode frequency decreases with pressure. This really never happens. Most of the time, not most, actually there are very few examples that when you apply pressure, the frequency will decrease, because usually you will expect that when you apply pressure, naturally the force constant will increase and frequency will increase, which is what happens in the other examples I showed you. But for this system, we see a clear anomaly in this E2G mode, and at this pressure, and then it becomes the normal behavior. There is a new mode appearing which we have called M4, and this M2 is a AG mode, again shows an anomaly. You can see a decrease which is much less than this E2G mode behavior. So we see very clear signatures, anomaly in the phonons at this transition pressure. Question is, what is really happening at this pressure? But another interesting thing is the same mode which is anomalous, you look at the line width. The line width is only 7 wave number, which is the typical one. It goes almost to about 30 wave number, a huge increase in the line width and again decrease. So you see that the phonon frequency is anomalous and line width is also anomalous. Line width which is related to the lifetime of these phonons. So anomalous increase by almost 200%. So how do we understand? So the focus of the next few minutes is to understand this transition, these anomalies, and which we will show you is really happening because the band insulator is becoming a topological insulator. So here, Umesh group, they have done density functional theory with GGA functional, and they show that at this pressure interesting things happen. So let me just focus on what is really happening at 2.5 GPa. So this is the energy versus wave vector, but I want you to focus at the gamma point. So here just come with me in this graph. You can see that at below 2 GPa you have a band gap. For example, at 1 GPa you have this conduction band and a valence band. At 2 GPa you have this bulk states where the band gap is becoming 0, and after that which is what is plotted here, and after that you again open up, but most importantly the parities are reversed. So here what is shown here, you look at this isosurfaces of charge densities, and what is being plotted here, these are the selenium things and other ones are the SB, and what you see here that for pressure less than PC, this HOMO, highest occupied molecular orbital, has a odd parity, this lowest unoccupied molecular orbital has even parity, and after PC it is reversed. So you can see that this is similar to this one and this is similar to this. So here there is a change in the parity of the states at the gamma point at pressure of 2.5 GPa. There will always be some difference in the pressure in the theory and experiment, but that is quite accepted in density functional theory. But important to realize that there is a band inversion, which is a very typical signature of a TI. So again shown here for isosurfaces, same thing which I will show here. Valence band has a odd parity, here it is a even parity for less than PC, and above PC it is really the reversed. So the summary of this is that what I plotted here, what I shown here last time, that SB to SC3, the parity of the highest occupied band becomes like the other TIs. So there is a change in the parity of this occupied band eigenstates at gamma point at this pressure. So this is a hydrostatic pressure. Yes. So I will show you the huge phonon anomaly I will show is because of that. No, conduction we have not done at under pressure, but Raman anomalies I will relate to this closing of the band gap at 2 GPa, like the graphene. Actually it is somewhat like a graphene problem. Here again this calculation show that at this 2 GPa you have this topology changing from band insulator to TI. So we have these two things happening. We have inversion of bands and reversal of parity as we showed in the last slide. But now calculation is done for phonon frequencies as a function of pressure, and lo and behold in this density functional theory there is no anomaly seen. So this is done by two methods, both frozen phonon and linear response theory, and no anomaly is seen in the phonon frequency, unlike the experiments. So this does not capture what is really happening in the experiments. Then we realize that first we must check, is the electron phonon coupling is strong or is it very very weak. Indeed electron phonon coupling is large, which you can see immediately in this calculation. You start with this, let's say undistorted band at PC, and now you freeze the phonon A1G mode, you will immediately see a band gap opening, and this tells, from this you can quantify that the electron phonon coupling is large. So electron phonon coupling is large, but still the phonon anomaly is not reproduced in the density functional theory, unlike our experiments. So you can see that if you freeze the A2U, which is an infrared phonon, again some interesting things happen. This twofold doubly degenerate conduction band and valence band are split, and showing that the electron phonon coupling is significant. So it's not that it is not large. So why are we not able to understand the anomaly? So this brought us to again the idea, this thing what we had seen in graphene. In graphene literature, there is a lot of work in the last 3 years where the frequencies are seen as a function of doping, not the pressure. And here you see that at the Dirac point you have the lowest frequency and the frequency increases, as well as line width also comes down. This is understood again by looking at this dynamic corrections. You have to go beyond the adiabatic approximation because the phonon is no longer a sluggish partner. Essentially you see the phonon induced transition, and you can show that when you dope it, essentially what you are doing, you are blocking some transitions which immediately reproduce, which immediately can be quantified to give you this phonon frequency increase and line width decrease. So our idea was something similar with pressure, because at PC you have a zero band gap, and this is like a Dirac point, and you go either side, what happens to phonon. So this is done, the dynamical corrections are done to phonon frequency using the well standard formula that you have the phonon self energy, which really depends on this matrix element of the electron phonon coupling. Essentially you are coupling the two electronic states with a phonon mu, and these are the typical Fermi-Dirac distributions. I just want you to realize that this is a dynamic correction and there is a phonon frequency present, it is not zero. So this you do the you can find out the real part and the imaginary part, but importantly now you need to know this coupling. What is the coupling? So this you need to know the coupling for A1G, A2U and EG. So here we depend very heavily on this calculation by Zhang et al., where he has shown that the conduction band and the valence band at the gamma point but doubly degenerate. So essentially you need 4 bands, and these 4 bands model of Zhang et al. Is used in the next few slides, which is written in terms of 5 Dirac matrices. So you need to put the electron phonon coupling this H in terms of this Dirac matrices and the phonon amplitude. And here in this calculation, pressure is put in by this variable called M0. Let me not go into detail, but just to show you by the symmetry arguments, it can be shown that for A1G you have this phonon amplitude and the Dirac matrix is gamma 5. For A2U it will be gamma 4 5, which is what I have defined here, gamma m gamma n over 2i, and sorry, this should be E mode, EG mode, which again depends on other combination of Dirac matrices. This comes from the symmetry of the phonons as well as the symmetry of the states, the electronic states. So this is what first we confirm that indeed these things are right. How do we know that? Because using this we can reproduce for A1G and A2U whatever I showed you earlier in the density functional theory. You reproduce that, which means that whatever the terms we have written are correct, and you do have electron phonon coupling in the way I showed you. But at the end of it, now you can calculate the dynamic correction, and you can see here that this is the zero pressure, not zero, this is the PC, and on either side you have the delta omega. This is in arbitrary units because there are unknown variables which we have not fitted. But what is important to see that it is highly asymmetric below PC and above PC, which is really reflecting the change in the topology of the electronic states. And this is for A1G phonon. For A2U phonon, which is the infrared phonon, the anomaly looks different, which has not been done. This experiment has not been done, but it is showing that indeed you have this anomaly which is asymmetric around this PC, and for EG phonon also you see an anomaly. So using dynamic theory we are able to understand the phonon anomaly happening at this PC where band insulator, 2 minutes? Fine. Where band insulator becomes a topological insulator. So, so line width is also calculated in the same formalism. Again here this is the expression for the line width, where again you have this electron phonon coupling, and in the same theory we show that FWHM of the EG mode beautifully is anomalous at in this slightly above PC, and then it decreases, which is somewhat similar to the experiments we are seeing. So the phonon anomaly in terms of frequency as well as the line width can be understood within this dynamic corrections to this phonon self energy. So let me conclude this talk to just tell that what we are looking here, that in this SB2 SC3 where we look at phonon anomalies at a pressure like about 3 GPa, the first principle DFT confirms this topological transition through band inversion and parity reversal, band insulator becoming a TI, and this since the band gap is going to 0 at PC, it requires to go beyond the adiabatic approximation. You have to put the non-adiabatic corrections, which is what was done, and this reproduces the anomalies in the phonon frequencies as well as the line width. And the last part is that we have the predictions for infrared active phonons, and it will be interesting to see how this resistance, the conductivity of these things will behave at a pressure of this 3 GPa when you are having a band insulator to a topological insulator, and surface states above the transition pressure, which is like that of a TI, and conductivity signatures as I mentioned. And another thing will be that you can look at the mixed states. So SB2 SC3 is what I said, SB2 TE3 is a topological insulator. So by appropriate taking the mixed system, whether you can have this transition happening at an intermediate value of this alloying. And this is another possibility which can be which is worth investigating. Thank you very much.
Yeah, back there.
So you mentioned that essentially what you're measuring is a bulk property, right?
Yes.
Yes. So do you expect it to depend on what your doping is, where the Fermi level is? Like if you could be at a different Fermi level, would you see something different, or should it not care?
The transition pressure? Yeah. Transition pressure...
Or even your Raman signatures, how they evolve.
See, the Raman signatures do depend on the doping by doping dependent effect, but that will not change with pressure. So whatever happens, let's say with some nominal doping, that will renormalize. But what is important here is that at the gamma point, whether this band inversion will be affected by the doping. That's the question you are asking. I don't know, but unless there is a drastic effect of this dopants, I don't know if it can be seen. Right? But again, to remind you, we are looking at the bulk signatures here. So bulk signatures of changes in the topology going from band insulator to a TI seen in Raman anomaly. So that's the moral of this experiment, which I believe people have not looked at the bulk signature so far, and this probably may be interesting to follow. Yeah.
What is the Eulerian strain?
Oh, Eulerian strain, I can talk to you later. This is just a way to define the changes in the lattice constant instead of just defining the volume by volume naught, V over V naught, but you look at both the quantity A and C for individual ones and make the reduced pressure from the known pressure, and that shows very clear signature. So if you are looking at total PV, it will not reflect this subtle transition, but if you look at A axis and C axis, it shows. As I said, things change in AB plane, not along the C axis.
A little bit of technical question about the linear response versus the dynamical phonon self-energy. I'm just a little worried that the way the linear response phonon calculation is done, and Manish Jain is really more of an expert on this, is basically a formula that's similar to that self-energy, except that it's at omega equals 0. That's essentially the difference.
Yeah.
So,
that's right. That is important, because if you put omega equal to 0 in the dynamic calculation, it is exactly density functional, and you do not get this phonon anomaly. Also, like in, this is also true for graphene.
Right.
Same physics. In graphene also, when you want to look at phonon renormalization due to doping, the DFT, the adiabatic one, does not capture the phonon renormalization. You have to go to the non-adiabatic, namely the finite omega nu, which is essential.
I see, but there are singularities in that formula still, right? Because there are at the gap closing point, you get a 0 denominator.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that doesn't give you any anomalies.
Yeah, so that's what I said, that I mean, that is, I understand that there is a way to handle that, and probably I can refer to Umesh to know the technical detail of that. Sorry. Oh, wow. Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of this session. We break for lunch now and then reassemble at 2:30.